Recall this. It's 2016 and you just got your hands on the brand new Bioshock collection. You had played the games as a kid even though you probably shouldn't have. And now, you're ready to experience the wondrous yet haunting world of Rapture all over again in full HD. What's this? A museum of orphan concepts that never made it into the game? Huh, that sounds cool. Good lord! Today, we're taking a plunge into the eerie world of Bioshock and talking about some of the scariest concepts and characters that never made it into the game. This is what Bioshock could have been. There are no two characters more recognizable from the Bioshock franchise than the little sister and the big daddy. But their designs weren't always like this. That's right, this dog in a wheelchair was one of the original designs that eventually evolved into the little sister. Let me explain. As you may know if you have played Bioshock, the purpose of the little sisters is to gather Adam, a valuable commodity to the player and a crucial part of the lore. Put simply, Adam is a powerful drug that affects its user's genetic makeup, offering amazing healing properties and giving its users awesome powers. Big Daddies serve as the protectors for these little sisters, allowing them to harvest atoms safely throughout Rapture. The concept of this gatherer-protector duo was established early on in development, but the designs of these characters weren't quite set in stone. At first, the idea for the Gatherer was to have it be some kind of sea slug monster. This makes sense from a lore standpoint. Rapture is an underwater city, and even in the finished game, Adam comes from a rare type of sea slug. But let me ask you something. Do you care about this slug? You see, in Bioshock, the little sisters come with a moral dilemma. You need the Adam that they collect to progress through the game. And if you manage to find one, the game prompts you with two options. Save the little sister to gain a little bit of Adam and restore her back to normal,
thank you, mister.
or harvest her to get maximum Adam, although she won't survive the process. Now first of all, holy shit. And second of all, no one would care about harvesting the slug. The main problem with this early model for the Gatherer was that players couldn't empathize with it. So the developers got to work. Finding a proper model for the Gatherer was a company-wide event. Workers all throughout Irrational were allowed to submit their ideas. They just needed something that would invoke empathy in the player. Things like a chipmunk, a stingray, a chubby little man. This one's actually kinda cute. And of course, a dog in a wheelchair. Yeah, this one didn't make it for obvious reasons, but it did apparently become an inside joke around the office. By the way, a lot of the information in this video comes from the official Bioshock art book. I really recommend checking it out if you like this kind of stuff. I personally love finding out interesting things about the video games I played when I was growing up. If that's the kind of thing that you love too, you should definitely consider subscribing. I make videos about that very thing every single week. Alright, let's get back into the video. Eventually, they settled on this concept art of a disgruntled and creepy looking little girl. This would eventually become the little sisters that we see in the game. Less disgruntled, but definitely still creepy.
I can see light coming from his belly.
Conceptualizing the Big Daddy didn't seem quite as difficult for Irrational. Protectors / Big Daddies were always kind of imagined as the deep-sea construction workers of Rapture turned intimidating bodyguards to the Gatherers. Hence the drill for the Bouncer variant and the rivet gun for the Rose variant. They found inspiration for the design in old diving suits, which is a good idea. This is horrifying. Once they had that idea, they pretty much stuck to it. The original concept art for the Bouncer variant of the Big Daddies had two flat drills as opposed to a singular cone-shaped drill, but otherwise looks pretty similar to what we got in the game. The main reason for the change was so that Big Daddies had a free arm to interact with the little sisters. There was supposed to be another variant of the Big Daddy that fired projectiles from this cannon on his shoulder. However, the team decided to focus on polishing these first two models. This variant was later reworked and implemented into Bioshock 2 as the Rumbler. This concept art shows a Big Daddy in a wheelchair. Man, what's with all these wheelchairs? I have no doubt that would have been horrifying. Imagine walking through a dimly lit room in Rapture and hearing this. There were also a few slug variants, for lack of a better word, but those never made it into the game either. These abominations could have been scary, but wouldn't really fit the Bioshock aesthetic, I feel. Speaking of abominations, these were some of the first enemy designs for Bioshock, back when the only ideas that were set in stone about the game were underwater city and genetic mutation, and I mean, yeah, I see it. I hate the smile on this one's face. He looks like a mix between a necromorph from Dead Space and Poppy's Playtime. These creepy fucks were some of the original designs that would later become the Splicer. Splicers are the citizens of Rapture who have succumbed to Adam addiction. They're the most common enemy in the game and are far different from whatever the hell these things are. But how did this happen? You can see this drift towards more human designs for the Splicers as development went on. Stitchy here is one of the first designs in this direction and actually got pretty far along in development. They created a fully functioning model complete with a recorded voiceover. Unfortunately, Stitchy was cut from the game when developers realized they just kinda didn't like him. Lead artist Sean Robertson says Stitchy was probably the worst abomination that Irrational ever made. And I just don't know about that. Some later designs for the splicers emphasized the use of Adam. A lot of the character designs at this point had some kind of Adam injector connected to their body. Another idea at the time was that Adam genetically mutated different enemies based on their abilities. For instance, Yamhan here was a melee character, so he had a big old mutated arm to hit you with. These ideas are cool and all, but they're too monstrous. As the lore of Rapture developed, it became important for the enemies to be more human. Some of the major themes of Bioshock are greed and corruption, which are personified by the splicer. What's scarier, some made-up smiling skin monster, or the very real evil that exists within all of us on a primal level? Yeah, definitely the skin monster.